Boys, let's raise a glass. We have Brad Thor in the house.
Hey, here he is.
Everybody. Yeah.
How
Oh,
are
look
you?
at this, even the branded glasses. My gosh, you guys are unbelievable.
We stepped it up a notch.
Polos and glasses. This is really classy.
We got some sponsors now too, so we'll talk about that.
Going all corporate now.
Look
What
at
happens
us.
when big time authors come on our show?
We sold out big time.
Sold out. You guys sold out to Big Book, huh?
We did.
That's not a very long sale.
No.
Not a lot of thought behind selling.
Kind of dicey.
Oh, I don't know where we were going with this. But hey, Brad, welcome back, brother.
Wow, it's good seeing you guys. I can't believe it's been a year.
I know, it's shocking.
So, Brad, last time this year, you told us you had no idea what was going to happen in the next Scott Harvath thriller. You said you couldn't wait to come on to the crew reviews next year, meaning now, because that would have meant you'd written the story. And at one point, you joked it could end up being Caddyshack meets Die Hard. And I was like, dude, I would buy that. So please tell me you actually like entertained that thought in writing that story.
Unfortunately, no. It was a good kind of closing joke on your show before I went out the door. No, I take this stuff. I take this stuff very seriously. So sure. We come on together and we joke and all that kind of stuff. But it's super important to get it right. And I try to ratchet it up every year. I did something different with this book than I've done before. I opened Black Ice with like a slice from the climax.
Right.
And so that prelude that readers will see when they get the book, when it releases July 20th, the prelude, actually I wrote that. I'm like, okay, I have no idea how this pays off. I did, Scott Harvath's got a particular injury. There's a piece of equipment that he's carrying that's damaged. He's got another odd shaped item with him. And I mean, it was like Colonel Mustard in the library with a candlestick holder, but I have no idea where he is, how many other people, who's dead. I just did that as an opener for like a really action-packed opener. And just knew that by the end of the book, I had to pay off that first page somehow.
It was interesting when I actually got to that part in the book, and I think it's like chapter, I don't know, 35, 36. It's somewhere towards the end.
It's out there,
book. Yeah. I actually went back to the beginning, and I was like, oh crap, this is actually what was in the beginning, and then it all clicked, and it was pretty cool to see that. But in all seriousness, Black Ice, it's a fast-paced and timely thriller that your fans, they're going to love. So would you mind giving readers a high altitude, low opening glimpse as to what's in store for Scott in this book?
I'll be happy to. And by the way, when I chuckled a couple seconds ago, it wasn't about you in chapter 35. It's when my editor got there and she made a note. She goes, I feel like I've heard this before. Somebody, like I cribbed it from somebody else. I'm like, it's page 1. I have to repeat it exactly because we have page 1 and then we flash back 72 hours. And then you have to catch up to page 1. You're finally back in that time. So it was kind of funny. And she's got a great sense of humor. She's like, I'm so sorry. I won't type ever again before the second cup of coffee. She's a good egg. All right. So 30,000 foot view of Black Ice. Harvath is, Scott Harvath is in Oslo with his girlfriend. He's been there all summer. He is out of vacation days, out of sick days. And the Carlton Group back in DC is giving him an ultimatum: either get back by Monday or tender your resignation. And so, as much as he loves his girlfriend, he's having a great time, best summer ever. He's really just having a blast in Norway. He misses his job. It's really a calling for him, and he doesn't want to give up on it. He doesn't want to be out of this job. So he makes plans to go back. He's got 5 days left, and Norway is going to make the best of him. And leaving his favorite cafe, he ends up seeing a person, somebody he killed several years ago, halfway around the world. He has no idea, why is this person above ground, breathing, walking around, much less in Oslo, blah, 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 blah. And so that starts a chase to figure out who this person is, what they're doing, and what does it have to do with Norway. And so that's the kickoff. So in real life, I've been very interested in what's happening with the Chinese and the Russians, particularly in this part of the world and above the Arctic Circle. There really is a new Cold War that's going on up there. And I talked to a lot of people I know, including the former National Security Advisor, about this issue. And they're like, yeah, Thor, you've got to do the book about this issue. It is huge, and not enough people know about what's going on up there. So perfect setting for a modern spy thriller.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, as it was already mentioned a couple of times, there wasn't a lot of pre-planning, or at least you were expressing there wasn't a lot of pre-planning for this book early on. But the ending, and I won't say what it is, but the ending was a real shocker, I think, for me and the guys and a few others that like, what? Like, I never saw that coming. So did it even surprise you, or was that one piece that was actually pre-planned?
Nope, that was not planned. I had no idea where the book was going to end up and how that was going to happen. And so total surprise. I don't know if we talked about this before, but my agent also represents Dan Brown. And so she thought, am I at a focus to you guys?
No, you're okay.
No,
Okay, it looks, I see like the cameras fighting between the book and me, and it just looks a little fuzzy on this end. So I'm going to do my magic, like talk to the hand.
There you go, talk to the hand.
Oh, Brad told us.
Didn't work. But it is a nice filter. I look 10 years younger.
Yeah, it's a Barbara Walter special.
Yeah,
maybe this is a feature. Maybe this is why it was selected for me.
This is that extra money we got from the sponsor.
Yeah. My wife doesn't want me to pay to go get the treatments to get tightened up. So she wants this camera.
Way cheaper.
Programmed it with a filter. Anyway, Dan Brown outlines. He's very, very meticulous with his outlines, and I got to see the outline for Da Vinci Code, and it was amazing. I got to see what made it in the book, what didn't make it into the book. It was really kind of Dan to share it with me. And so I outlined a book after this. This was years ago, and it was terrible writing it. I did not like knowing what was going to happen next. And Robert Frost once said, no surprise in the writer, no surprise in the reader, no joy in the writer, no joy in the reader. And he went on and on, no tears in the writer, no tears in the reader. Yeah. So I really like to be organic. I want to have the experience writing the book that you're having reading it. I make this joke, we're all bourbon drinkers here. I make this joke all the time that I go home and my wife can tell if it's a red wine night or a bourbon night just by the expression on my face, my taut, young, filtered face. She can tell, and she said, oh, you know what, don't worry, whatever corner you've painted Harvath into, you'll figure it out tomorrow when you get back in the office. And so that makes the job really, really tough, but I also think it makes the job very enjoyable because it's so challenging, because I don't have every step mapped out. That's also why there's no fat in my novel. There aren't pages that I cast out as we're going through and editing. There is only if I repeat myself. And my wife has got this red pen. I call her Zorro. She goes through and she X's stuff out. And she's like, no, you already explained this 3 chapters ago. You don't need it. That's the only time stuff comes out. Other than that, everything I write stays in.
Oof. All right, folks.
One of my favorite features of this series is the sort of yin and yang between the familiar of Scott Harvath that we know and the often surprising ways that you take him and he grows and develops. This is a far different guy than we met at Lions of the Lucerne, for instance. In fact, I think the guy at the end of Black Ice is a far different guy than the beginning of Near Dark for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
So I know you don't outline, but when you set out to write a novel, is there a particular part of Harvath you want to explore before you type that first page, or is it pure serendipity?
No, that's a great question. So when I originally, I think we did talk about this before, and if we didn't, I'll make it very fast. But I never intended to write a series character. I'd always loved picking up Michael Crichton books and just jumping in with new people every single time, basically. So I thought it would be a lot easier, a lot more exciting as an author to have a new protagonist every book, because you can come up with, this guy lost his wife in childbirth, this guy had been in a car accident. You could create different backgrounds and explore different themes based on where your protagonist comes from. But my editor and the people who read Lines of Lucerne's like, no, people are going to love this character. And the cold readers we've given your manuscript to absolutely love Harvath. You have to bring him back. And my editor went a step further and she said, okay, you read a lot in the thriller genre. I said, absolutely.
Yeah.
She goes, how many times have you bought a book and read it, even though you didn't like the description on the flap, because you love that character and you wanted to go on another adventure with that character, regardless of, even if they were going into a part of the world you didn't really care much. I said, I've done it all the time. And she said, exactly. Yeah. She said, when readers get to meet Scott Harvath, they are going to love Harvath and want to keep going on adventures with Harvath. So the challenge then becomes, how do you reveal parts of Harvath to the reader that they haven't heard before? I read something once, and it's a really good saying, that, we don't want James Bond to be different at the end of the movie. We don't want Indiana Jones to be different at the end of the movie. We don't want them to find their feelings and sit around and hold hands and talk about their feelings and drink constant comment tea. It's not what we want. So you have to provide consistency in the character, but it is kind of cool. And I started doing stuff about Harvath's background, his relationship with his dad, what it was like growing up, the kind of special needs kid in his neighborhood that was bullied, and Harvath, that was kind of his first calling to helping the weak, is protecting this kid. And so I can explore different parts of his character that way and what it means. And he's been through some rough stuff. I mean, he's really been wounded. And starting in Backlash, so not last summer before's book, Backlash, I started exploring a little bit about what some of that heartache meant to him that he had been through, worried that I was going too far. There is no manual when you're writing a book. Right. It's never been done before. The book you're writing has never been written before. So there's no right or wrong, but there's also no help, really. So I don't know until I get to the end of the book, did I overdo it? Did I underdo it? And I gave it to a bunch of people to read, and they're like, no, pitch perfect. You got to trust that process.
Right.
So, to your point, I don't think there's any coincidence that when Bond relaunched with Daniel Craig, the sort of emotional background to what made him the cold as ice killer really resonated with viewers. I mean, I think that was one of the reasons that there was such a successful relaunch. But one other question I want to ask, kind of, even though what you said, even taking your answer, how often do the seasons in Harvath's life mirror those of Brad Thor's? I know you're not in the same profession, but the seasons themselves.
That's an excellent question. I tell people that Harvath is my alter ego, same way I'm sure Bond was for Fleming and Jack Ryan was for Clancy. So those seasons are there. If my wife is watching, it has nothing there's nothing going on. Harvath has a much younger girlfriend now. His wife
Disclaimer.
I'm not saying those are any, we want to go too deep into my psyche on that stuff. That's just artistic flourish there as an author.
Brad, why are we going back to Norway again, Brad?
So, I mean, that's my buddies like that character. And it was fun too. I wanted to create, in Solveig Kolstad, I wanted to create somebody who was just as good, if not maybe a little bit better, a female character than Harvath.
Right.
And I joke in Black Ice that the only thing he's got her beat on is experience, and that's because he's been in the game longer than she has. Yeah. And she's closing the gap with him. So as you talk about seasons in a man's life, it's really, really funny because during quarantine, I actually found, and I've got thousands of books, I found this book that's actually called The Seasons of a Man's Life. And I don't know how I got it. I used to have a psychologist as a next door neighbor when I worked in Park City, and I texted him and I'm like, hey, did you give me this book? He's like, no, I didn't give you that book. So I have no idea where it came from, but it did talk about some of those pivotal moments in a man's life. And it was interesting for me to read and think about Harvath. Here are issues in your 30s, here are issues in your 40s and in your 50s, and on and on and on and on and on. So I think there are some things that I go through, and Harvath gives me a chance to work some of that stuff out. I remember I got pretty heavily into Red Bull after I'd been in Afghanistan. And the next book that came out, The Apostle, there was lots. People are like, are you sponsored by Red Bull now? There's only about 85 mentions in The Apostle of Red Bull. And I remember 2 books ago, my dad's like, a lot of bourbon in this book.
Yeah.
Hey,
So there's definitely stuff in Harvath and things that he goes through that are adjacent or directly tied to stuff that I'm kind of going through, because I think the truth resonates with people, and I think conflict and how you resolve conflict resonates with people. We have issues with our significant others. We have issues with coworkers, with employers, managers, customers, all that kind of stuff. So I think if you can make it real in that sense, it makes characters more appealing because they're more like you.
Yeah.
So pivoting from Scott now actually to the story in Black Ice, which centers on a very specific piece of tech, one with serious national security consequences, and it takes place in and around the Arctic, as we were talking about before. And having as many contexts as you have at the upper echelons of government, is the military and commercial encroachment of the Russians and the Chinese in the Arctic now being taken seriously? And is it, in your mind, a potential flashpoint?
Definitely a potential flashpoint. Yeah, it's being taken seriously. So I spent a certain amount of time with the last national security advisor, who has been a buddy of mine since college. And this was an issue that he was very concerned about as well. And when there are 8 Arctic nations who have sovereign territory in the Arctic. We're one of them because of Alaska. And Mike Pompeo, former Secretary of State, went to a meeting of the Arctic Council, and he admitted, he's like, yeah, we were way behind the curve on this one. And China's pushing very hard to get in there. They're trying to buy their way in. They've been trying to buy businesses, buy property. They've floated a lot of icebreakers because they want to be up there helping people so that they become invaluable. They want access. It really is it's not a climate change book. I list one fact about temperature, and that is, I don't care what you think about climate change, this is not a climate change thing, but temperatures for some reason are going up twice as fast in the Arctic versus anywhere else on the planet.
Yes.
And so what it's doing is it's taking the ice flows, it's turning it to slush up there. So you can actually get boats into places that you never could before. And in the book, I talk about the fact that the Chinese love it because they can go Shanghai to Rotterdam in 20 less days with goods. So instead of a 48-day trip, they can do it in 28 days. 48, what did I say, 28 days less, so 48, 28, 20 days. So it cuts the time off for them. It also would allow them to move their naval vessels up and over Russia and down off the east coast of the United States. So that's just one thing that's going on up there. The Russians have built a ton more bases. They've opened up shuttered Cold War era bases up there, putting a lot of military people up there. And I got pointed to an article about what the Chinese were doing down in southern hemisphere in Antarctica, where they were basically sneaking people into the research facilities who weren't scientists. They were actually soldiers, and they're doing stuff with satellites and all this kind of stuff via these bases down there, trying to create exclusion zones where nobody can fly over them because they claim it's disruptive to their scientific research. It's a bunch of bullshit. So the Chinese really are on this roll, and they're working with the Russians, and it's very important. We have one icebreaker. Chinese have got a bunch of them. The Russians have tons, and we have one. And when we were having trouble with Russia recently, the new administration wanted to do a freedom of navigation maneuver and sail over the top of Russia. And the Navy got back to them, and they said, listen, we've talked with the Coast Guard because the icebreakers, we can't guarantee that this thing isn't going to break down in the middle of that. Yeah. And we're doing it to kind of show the Russians how tough we are. But if the icebreaker breaks down, we're going to have to ask the Russians for help. I mean, it's ridiculous. So one of the things that happened under the last administration was they leased a couple of icebreakers, and I put this in the book. They leased a couple of icebreakers. They're doing a big orange Coast Guard stripe on it, putting 50 caliber machine guns and putting in a skiff to handle sensitive information and communications and that kind of stuff. So we're leasing until the ones that we've paid for to build are built, and those are dropped in the water. But it's nuts. And so, you know, I write fiction, but I call what I do faction. You don't know where the facts end and the fiction begins. Yep. And I want my books to be not only exciting, but for you to go, holy crap. Now, every time I turn around, I hear the plot from Thor's new book playing out in the media.
Yeah, you do.
And you want to rob us of sleep is what you want to do.
Yeah.
I've been obsessed with this a little
Yeah.
bit.
With these opening sea lanes now, I mean, it really puts Norway in a horrible spot in that as a NATO ally, and they got Russia right on their doorstep.
Mhm.
And and their importance for monitoring those openings becomes even more critical. So how much more I don't know what to say, but Norway is really put into a tougher spot, more so now than ever. And what is their role from the NATO standpoint in helping monitor that whole region?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we do have, without giving away too much of the plot, we do have the shared radar installation on Vardo. That's way up at the top of Norway, right up in the north, right across the border from Russia. So we've got that. There is a submarine base that we have leased from them so that we can put a sub up there, which drives the Russians crazy. They hate that. And before COVID, we were supposed to do another cold weather warfare thing with the Marines, with the NATO military, and that got scrapped because of COVID. But the Russians have been very provocative in that area. They really are serious about trying to rattle everybody up there. The Finns, the Swedes. The Swedes are kind of half pregnant with NATO. They're not all the way in, but they're not all the way out. Norwegians are completely in. And so I've been looking at that part of the world for a couple of books now because it really is important. We store all that military hardware in Norway in the secret cave complex. There's the issue of that island, Gotland, off of Sweden. And if the Russians ever wanted to invade our NATO allies in the Baltics, they would just take over that Swedish island. And
that was 2 books ago, right?
Yeah, so that was Spy Master.
Right.
Yeah. So 3 books ago.
3 books ago.
Near Dark Backlash Spy Master. So
dude, you're awesome.
Yeah, so that I mean, you learn a lot doing this. It's like I didn't know that once we get our military equipment from Germany into Poland, then you've got to switch it to different train tracks because the gauge changes as you go up into Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. So just stuff that it's fascinating. And so I'm hoping that people enjoy the books. They have a great thrill ride, but they walk away a little bit better informed about these situations because they're important things for us to understand, particularly with now we're coming all the way out of Afghanistan. We're out of Iraq. We have a very war-weary public, and heaven forbid Russia moves against one of the smaller NATO members. It's important that people understand why that alliance is important, because I think you'd have a hard time convincing Americans that we should put young men and women on the line for a place they can't even find on the map.
Right.
Yeah, the Baltic states or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
You actually, that's a great lead in and maybe a partial answer to my next question. So clearly, the Arctic Circle grabbed and held your attention. It's got mine now, and I'm now going through the sources and your acknowledgments to up and edify myself on that. But when you decide the area of the world and the geopolitics that you are going to explore with the novel, clearly your first intent is to entertain. But is part of what drives you this using your platform to bring more attention to an issue so that maybe, somebody that doesn't read the articles that are in your acknowledgments might learn about this from your books?
That would be icing on the cake. I mean, my number one job is I'm an entertainer. So I want to entertain you. And if you have a white knuckle thrill ride, you love the book, it was so exciting, couldn't put it down. Oh, just one more chapter, then I've done my job as a writer. If you walk away a little bit more knowledgeable, either about how, the SEAL teams or Delta works, or why this part of the world is important to the US and why we should be paying attention to it. If you walk away a better informed citizen, then I've done my job as an American. But that's secondary. But first and foremost, I'll never be like a message guy, like I'm going to stand on a soapbox and beat stuff into you, because that's not what people are buying the books for. People buy my books because they love that fast, action-packed, intriguing, twisty read, but not because they're coming to me for me to teach them stuff about the world. I like to put those facts in there because I find them fascinating. And I think it adds to the authenticity of the plots and everything interesting if you have that real world background. And it's fun just to have people say, like, I did a pandemic thriller several years ago, Code of Conduct, and people have been rediscovering Code of Conduct during quarantine and everything with COVID. And they're like, oh my God, how did you know? How did you know? So it was kind of,
I started it. Yeah.
Kind of cool. If I really believed it that much, I would have, put some shorts in the market or something like that. So I could really
right?
take it.
I've often said that, like, if you're a boring history teacher, then you're just a terrible teacher, because history is an easy thing to make exciting. But I find that with your books, I started out a big, huge David Morrell fan when I started as a reader. And what always happened was I'd read his books, and then I'd read 3 to 4 nonfiction historical accounts that were referenced in his books, and I would grow from that. And I definitely am finding that with your work is I'm entertained like crazy, and that's all I'm focused on. But when it's over, I'm like, you know what? I need to know how close is, you call it faction, and I always want to know how much of that is the fact and how much of it is the the fiction. So
you're gonna thank you. Number one. Number two, you're gonna love tomorrow, because tomorrow I'm launching. I picked what I thought were 6 fabulous backgrounders that I included in my research for Black Ice, that like I named a bunch of journalists and stuff in the acknowledgments of Black Ice.
Right.
I actually am putting out something tomorrow. We're emailing people, and I'm going to have it. It's going to be on the blog section of bradthor.com, and it's going to be kind of a primer for Black Ice. Like, if you want to know more of the background, more of the facts in the faction coming up on July 20th, here are some of the best articles that I encountered doing research for the book, and we're putting that out tomorrow.
That's a great idea.
We will definitely retweet
value
that.
add.
Yeah.
We'll do our best to promote that.
Yeah.
Oh,
absolutely.
wow. Thank you. Okay.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's going out in the morning in the email, and then I'll put it up on social media later in the day. I always like the people who subscribe to my email. I never abuse it. I try to make it fun and not always be, hey, buy my merch, like you see all over the place. It's not
Buy our
about
merch.
buy your merch. I want people to, I want to give them some extra. So, like, particularly this year, it's been this past 15 months been rough for a lot of people, and I wanted to stay in touch. I always want to stay in touch with readers, but I was looking to do some fun stuff this year. So outside of book related things, I was picking here's some of my favorite series that I'm binging on, some of my favorite films, that kind of stuff, and I like to throw that out there to make people happy.
All right. Well, so we were talking about faction. Let's go back to the fiction part of it. And there was something you added into the story that I was pleasantly surprised at. I know Mike and Sean were also. Reed Carlton, Scott Harvath's mentor. He's gone, but his presence is felt throughout Black Ice, and particular readers. You're going to learn the origin of the old man's code name. Peaches.
Yeah, that was fun. That was a lot of fun. And those. So as I say in the acknowledgments, so for those of you, I won't spoil it, but you do get to see an operation that Reed Carlton was on during the Cold War. And so what's really cool is the infiltration and the exfiltration methods are actually authentic. They were done during the Cold War. And so I made sure to credit the people who had done those methods at the end of the book. But so it was fun to do that. I needed a little action piece at that point in the book. And I really had been wanting to revisit the old man a little bit. And so that was kind of a fun way to do it, to take people back in time to see one of his ops.
Yeah, no kidding.
So I don't want to give away any spoilers, because like that story behind the name is just awesome, and readers are going to love it.
I never knew his name. I never knew how he got the name.
So that's what I wanted to ask you.
Really? I never knew. I just thought the name was perfect. His nickname, because of how rough he could be in interrogation. Right. It was so damn funny because it was so contradictory to his personality in interrogations. That's what made the nickname so damn funny. But to actually take readers to the very moment in time he got that nickname, that was too much fun.
So where did that come to you?
When that thought, go ahead, Chris.
No, I was gonna say, like when did that come to you? Was it as you were writing the story and you're like, oh my gosh, this is it? Or is it as you were like, hashing it out in your head?
As I was writing it, because what I'm doing is I'm actually, like I'm typing, and as I'm typing, it's almost like I got toe straps on an F-150 in front of me, pulling me through the story. And as I type, that keeps the pressure on the gas pedal, and so the truck keeps pulling me forward into the story. So I've got to figure something out if I want to stay on my feet, or I'm gonna fall on my face and get dragged. So it's just that's that constant painting myself into a corner, never taking the easy way out. I'm working on a non-book related project somewhere else, and with another writer out in Hollywood, and the guy's really, really cool. And it's funny because he starts his process at the end and works backwards. And I said, I can't do that. I start at the beginning and I have to write one page at a time. So you want to talk about stuff in the middle? I can't, I'm not there yet. I've got to build the story, at least mentally, up to that middle point to make sure it all makes sense. So I can't tell you what's happening here until I get there, if that makes sense. Very linear with my storytelling.
Did you high five yourself though when you came up with that story? I mean, because I had to be.
Or to drink and chuckle. Yeah, thank you. I thought it was pretty funny. And so when I get a joke that works, if I'll laugh out loud at my own joke, I mean, a lot of us laugh at our own jokes. But I laughed at that one, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's a good fit. But I wrote that. So I wrote it that that the person recounting the story sets it up to Harvath, saying, I'm going to tell you how he got his nickname.
Right.
And like in the real world, the author, I'm like, that's really cool. And I'm like, what the hell am I doing? I don't know how the guy got his nickname. I'm going to have to pay this off, and it's going to have to be worth it. So that's raising the bar.
Had to be a red wine night.
It forces the reader to flip that page.
One more chapter.
Yeah. Well, when I was reading this, I really sensed beyond just the words your affinity for Norway and the people of Norway.
You're gonna get me in trouble with my wife again, aren't you?
Well, we'll leave that part out. But
no,
had you spent time there? Like I know COVID probably made a big hit in terms of your.
Yeah, I couldn't get back to go to a particular part that's in the book because it got closed down very quickly in the coronavirus, the initial throes of it. So I had to pull back from there, but I was able to network into a couple of people who had operated there.
Okay.
So I was able to get an idea of, what were the Russian buildings like, what they look like inside. One guy even shared photographs with me that he took of all the Russian stuff. And I was like, you're awesome. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, so I'm Norwegian and Swedish. So Norwegian on my mom's side, Swedish on my dad's side. It's funny because Vince, Thor. It's funny because I used to joke whenever Vince Flynn and I were at events, because he's several inches taller than I am, and I'd go, "Who would think the Irishman would be taller than the Viking?" So Norway is such a beautiful country, and I have so much respect for the middle finger they gave the Chinese over the Nobel Peace Prize 10 years ago, where the Chinese tried, and I talk about this a little bit in the book too, where the Chinese basically tried to extort them, to basically bully the crap out of them, and the Norwegians were like, "Nope, up yours. We're not rescinding that award," because they gave it to a jailed Chinese dissident. And it took over a decade for Norway to normalize relations. China wouldn't allow tourism to Norway from its people, which was a huge source of income for the Norwegian economy. And then China was one of the biggest importers of Norwegian salmon. So it was rough, but the Norwegians, they're tough as hell, and they stood their ground, and I respect them. I love all the stuff going back to post-World War II and the stay-behind teams that they created in case Russia ever invades Norway. And they have got so many dirty fucking tricks up their sleeves. If the Russians ever invade Norway, the Russians are going to have big problems. That stuff I did not put in the book because there's a lot of it I agreed not to reveal. But if Russia ever comes into Norway, the Russians think they know. They don't know. They are in for a big problem.
I gotta guess.
Cold Afghanistan.
What's that?
I gotta guess.
I feel like I had cold Afghanistan.
Oh, yeah. Well, I gotta guess. After being occupied by the Nazis, they weren't going to have that anymore. So, they're not going to trade.
Yeah, the one that we're really worried about in that part of the world is Finland. And so in a lot of the think tanks and everything, they think Finland would try to sit it out, and would they let us use their airspace and stuff like that. We don't think the Finns would dig in and engage against the Russians. So it does, that whole part of the world is really important. And I think just from a civics perspective, just being an informed citizen, I think there's a lot we don't pay attention to. It's very easy to be distracted and to not pay attention to different parts of the world. I think Norway's gorgeous. I think it's really exciting what's happening over there. There really is, like I said, a new Cold War going on. So for me as an author, to mine all this stuff and to be writing about places that maybe people aren't used to seeing or reading about is really cool. And again, I have so much respect for the Norwegians. I just think they're kick-ass people. So it's fun to write about them. And I'm glad it came through. I'm glad you noticed.
Oh
Yeah, it just felt like
for sure.
you lived there.
I hate the cold, and it made me want to go there. And I hate the cold.
That's what's killing. It's killing me now. I would love to. I was going to take my dad back over this year, and it's been tough to kind of get to the point where, we're like, okay, all the restrictions are lifted, or we can go here and we can go there. So my dad doesn't have many summers. I hope he's the tough old Viking. He's got a lot of summers left. I miss it. And I would have loved to have gone over and maybe done a book event over there and that kind of a thing. Next year.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great segue to this. Travel is a really important part of your research process. We follow, those of us who follow you on social media have seen, some of the places you've traveled, and it comes through in the research. Clearly, you've been a lot of places and you have a lot to draw from, even if you never left the United States again. But how much did COVID adversely affect your process, whether it be research or writing?
Well, I always try to make it 80% plus me on the ground, wherever it is I'm writing, if I can. And that 20% normally is what you might, I don't know, is an area that I'm denied access to, right? Or for whatever reason would just be freaking crazy for me to try to waltz into someplace like Syria or something like that, right? So what I like to do is what I said happened with this one particular part of Norway is couldn't get in. They closed down very quickly because there's a lot of tight governmental controls there. And so I had to find somebody who had been there, who had gone over for, work. If I can get spooks or special operations personnel, that's my preference because they are very detail minded and the successful outcome of their mission is dependent upon them noticing even the smallest details. We talked about my novel Code of Conduct, and I did the whole pandemic thing. Yeah. And so there was the Democratic Republic of Congo. And you know what, even if I could go there, I'm not doing it. Not for a book. It ain't worth it. It's not worth it. So I reached out through my network and spoke to a former special operations guy that had gone over and had worked there. And he's like, okay, Thor, you want to ask me for details. What are you looking for? I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, well, okay, I can't help you. If you don't know what you want, I can't. I'm like, all right. Tell me, does everybody ride the same bicycle there? I just pulled it like out of the air. And he goes, oh my God, they all ride the same bicycle. It's called a black mamba because when it goes through the dusty streets, the trail that the tire leaves looks like the trail of the black mamba snake. So I put this in the book. I had multiple people that had done like Peace Corps work over there or medical research or whatever going, Thor obviously came over here because only if you've been here do you know that everybody rides the black mamba bicycle.
That's it.
I'm a genius.
I'll take it. I bought that guy a steak dinner, so I'll claim that I was over. Democratic Republic of Congo.
Well, now that things are opening up a little bit, what's on the Thor travel itinerary? Where's the next place you're going?
I'll tell you, I did for the International Thriller Writers Association, I had done a short story for their anthology Thriller that was called The Athens Solution. And I set a short story in Athens. And that's because I lived in Greece years ago. And so that's like on my list, high on my list of places I would love to go back to. We were just starting to get our kids into travel. We had taken our kids to England, Switzerland, Germany, and we were really hoping to get them out to some other places like, Italy and France and all that kind of stuff. And we've got my daughter leaving for college in the fall, and we got our youngest has got 2 more years of high school, so it'd be nice to do some family travel. So probably the places are not going to be super, at least with the family, it's not going to be the super crazy weird places like I'd like to go to maybe for writing, you know. But I'll find a way to work it all in together. But Greece is one place I would love to go back to. And I was saying to my wife, I said, my God, we could be in Greece this summer. It's one of the safest places to be because everything's outside. Nothing's inside.
There you go.
You're at the beach, you're at the taverna, that's outside. You know, you're having coffee, that's outside. I mean, the only time you're inside is when you're taking a shower or sleeping.
Nice.
All right. So while reading Black Ice, I often thought of Al Pacino's famous line in Godfather 3. Just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in. It seems like the life and mission that Scott leads extremely difficult for him to leave. He's the apex predator, and I think you coined that term, which is pretty cool. But it's as much as
that actually was from a guy that I know that does Harvath stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's how he.
I love that term.
It's a great. It is. I'd never heard it applied to human beings. I heard it in the animal kingdom, but so it's kind of a cool term.
See other people use it as well now, but you know, it's as much as who he is as what he does, but he's also on the receiving end of a lot of old man jokes from his teammates. It's kind of funny, but still.
And that's natural. I mean, you do. It's like I was talking to somebody recently who kind of comes from that background, and the person said to me, and now I'm drawing a blank who it was, but they just said, you know, you really nailed a lot of that camaraderie, kind of the team and the good-natured ribbing back and forth. You know, we've got tree frogs here in Tennessee, and I've never heard a tree frog in my life, and it sounds like somebody's being choked to death outside the window. And it's the worst sound in the world. And I'd had a couple shooters, and I went out last night and I was filming the frogs and just getting like trying to find them all so I could get rid of them and all this stuff. And I sent the video to a friend of mine who's in the intelligence community, and he's overseas. And he goes, man, you have really, really gone native there. You're Tennessee hillbilly. You're drunk out in the night hunting frogs, barefoot. You're drunk barefoot. Out hunting frogs.
There's no water moccasins.
That's a typical Friday night at the Thor house.
Life in Tennessee. So I laughed. He had me. He got me. So
all right. Well, but Scott Harvath, he's your bread and butter, right? But he's at the pinnacle of the thriller genre. I'll just put that out there. I mean, he is. But it seems like the curtain's closing on his story. Or can readers still count on the bodies piling up in Harvath's wake? Which is it?
I think so. And so does Simon & Schuster. I just signed a new contract for more Harvath books. So
how many? How many are we getting? 3?
4.
Oh, there we go.
I just signed a new contract.
Congratulations.
Quarantine. Thank you very much.
Congrats.
Yeah, they've been doing me, Kyle Mills. They've been getting us all sewn up, and you know they're going through their sale now. So they found a buyer, so that's all got to get approved. You know, I guess that's Department of Justice, that kind of a thing. When you have such a big publishing house with only a few big ones, and then they get merged. Yeah. So
is that 3 now?
Well,
the big 3.
One, Jeff Bezos is going to buy him.
Yeah.
When he gets back from space.
Maybe.
Maybe. Yeah. Well, Branson made it. God bless him.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did.
It was a cool video seeing him floating around. He's got his shades on, and all
that was a cool one.
I'm not that cool.
So we got 4 books.
I love Harvath out there breaking necks and cashing checks and just whacking and stacking bad guys. So I love to do it, and I have this affinity for Harvath. I really, really like him because I understand him so much. But I do like playing with the fact that he's been in the game a long time, and it's like being a professional athlete. He's got his aches and pains. I mean, and the fact that he's taken, performance enhancing drugs. I know a lot of these guys that have done or are doing it, because it's not like this is the Olympic committee regulating what you do. All that matters is getting the job done,
getting home.
So if you're on steroids or something else that's helping to improve your performance, that's acceptable.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking in one of our previous interviews with I think Connor Sullivan, who was talking about the guys who are 60 and 70 years old who are still working with ground branch in some fashion, who are still out there, slugging it out with the bad guys.
Yeah.
Some people can do it.
Yeah.
Some people can do it. And yeah, exactly. I've got somebody similar to that in Black Ice. There's some people that you can't take them out of the lifestyle. They just wouldn't know what to do. They're not going to sit on a rocking chair. It would kill them. It would kill them to be pulled out of that. There's nothing worse than being a former action guy, is what a lot of them will tell you. So yeah, but Harvath, listen, he takes very good care of himself. He's very skilled, very capable. With the funniest scene for me, one of the funniest scenes that I wrote was in Spy Master, where Harvath had gone off on a foot chase after this Russian. And he's feeling great. He knows that by all the workouts and taking these performance enhancing drugs that he'd shaved time off of his 100 meter, and he's going to get this guy. Like I can almost hear "Born Free," playing in the background. And he's about to tackle this guy, and Sloan whips by in the car. Yeah. And then just hits the guy with the car and sends him down and breaks his jaw and all this kind of stuff. That to me was just like, she goes by, it's like beep beep, gas with seven that just takes the guy out with the car. I love
Work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And that's part of that kind of good-natured rivalry on the team that I like to capture. Yeah. It's always funny. It's
I love it.
And the team medic diagnoses Harvath with something, and that was a funny joke.
Yeah, it was.
I like that. And so it just all goes around. I mean, it goes one person insults another, and that's the way these men and women are. I mean, that's what gets you through. You talk to cops, you talk to people that work in the ER. It's that kind of graveyard sense of humor that helps alleviate the tension and get you through it.
That's right. Hey, one last question, and I know you've been asked a million times, and I apologize ahead of time, but your fans really want to know, is there anything new going on in Hollywood with your series that you can even speak to?
I can dance around the edges of it. So quarantine has been fantastic for all things Hollywood for us. Nice. It's been absolutely terrific. So we had an executive producer, super successful, come and say, all right, want to do something, blah, 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 blah. Let's talk. And we talked. And I said, well, what about a director? Who would you choose as a director? And he said, who would you want? And I go, well, do you have a list of people I could choose from? He goes, yeah, if anybody you want, who do you want? I'm like, okay. This guy. I'm like, okay. I want this guy. I picked the best action director in Hollywood. I want this guy. He goes, all right, stay by your phone. He got the guy on a call with me and got him. So we got the best action director in Hollywood. I'm so thrilled we nailed this guy. And he's like, who do you want for a writer? And I'm like, this guy. He's like, done, got him. And I'm like, well, where are we going to go? He's like, this is the studio that's perfect for this. I'm like, really? He goes, Brad, got you the writer, got you the director. Don't even worry about it. So we are now at a studio. We've all negotiated our deals. So everything is I'm getting too far into the weeds, but they do what's called a long form contract. And it's on long paper, and it's a lot of details. And every participant that's in this, the director, the writer, me, blah, 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 we all have to read the contracts and then sign it, send it back. So once those are signed, we're in the process now of reading the deal, the long form. The studio will make an announcement. So the studio is going to coordinate with the director, the writer, me. They'll put together a press release. But until the studio is ready to announce it, I'm not allowed to say anything. But I will say this. We have had so many, for a town filled with so many beautiful people, I've kissed every single frog in Hollywood. Okay. I could write a book about all the twists and turns. But my entertainment attorney, who's also become my dear, dear friend over these 20 years, he said to me, he said, Brad, sometimes the best deal is the deal you don't make. Yeah. And he said, every single deal where we got down to the 2 or the 3 yard line and it didn't happen, we had scripts written in certain cases, blah, 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 blah. He said, it's all worth it. We never had something going in with this many A+ level people. He said, this thing is, and they're all talking about this is going to be bigger than James Bond. That's the goal. So when you've got the director saying that, when you've got the executive producer saying that, the studio, it's fantastic. So I'm very, very happy. And my thing's going to be, I'm going to let the studio put out the announcement, and then I'll obviously repost it and that kind of thing. But I've done those before. So I'm still a little bit jaded because I've been in these deals where it's, okay, now we'll put out the announcement. Everybody sign the agreements. Let's put out the announcement, and stuff doesn't happen. We're very confident based on the fact that the players on this deal, they're all super hyper successful. If I said the names, you guys would be like, holy, I've seen all that person's movies, blah, blah, blah. I can't believe it. So these are incredible folks. We just have to get the contract signed and then move to the next phase, which from what I understand is once we're all on board, the talk is then, do we want an actor before the script is written, or do we want to write the script and get the actor? So I don't know. I've always heard, these guys didn't say anything about this, but I've heard sometimes that if you bring an actor in too early, they try to get very involved in the screenplay and stuff like that. They want to start writing themselves almost aspects of the character and things like that. But that part is more the movie makers. You know, we pitch this as, hey, you guys, studio, you're buying essentially the Marvel universe, 21 novels, because they get the Athena project as well, with different characters that can be spun off. And by the way,
that's awesome.
People tell horror stories about Hollywood. Every single person on this deal, right up to the executives at the studio, are the nicest, smartest, most humble, hardworking people I've ever met. They are just wonderful, wonderful people. I couldn't ask to be involved with a nicer, more professional group of people. But that's why they are the most successful people in Hollywood, is because they're not goofballs. They're legit, serious business people. They go home to their families at the end of the night, at the end of the day. And I'm just thrilled to be going to be mentioned in the same press release with these guys because they're freaking incredible.
Oh,
dude,
so that's a non-answer answer, but that's all I'm allowed to give you.
That's what I wanted to hear. Yes.
We'd love to actually, once the details are public, we'd love to chat with you about it again. So
you got it. You got it. I would love to.
So let's raise a glass, Brad. You've completed the traditional portion of the interview.
A little bit left.
And now we're going to move on to what was formerly the lightning round, but we have a new sponsor, Rabbit Hole Distillery. Some great nice. What I'm drinking tonight, right here,
Colorado,
just north of you, Brad, just north of you in Kentucky.
Right, some good stuff. So tonight we're going down the rabbit hole, and I'm going to ask you some silly questions. Hopefully, you give us some silly answers.
All right.
So, Black Ice, you mentioned there are 3 key ingredients to happiness: something to do, something to love, something to look forward to. I can guess the first. Yeah, I can guess something. I can guess the first 2 for you, but outside of the literary and the cinema world, what is the one thing you're looking forward to?
Traveling.
All right.
That's my thing. I was a travel journalist before I became an author.
Yeah,
I love it.
True.
Yeah.
All right. So the next one. You have to drink like a Viking. Apparently drinking Viking akvavit, is that right?
Aquavit.
Akvavit makes you a real Viking. First, is that a real thing? And B, have you done it?
I have done it, and that's just a ball-busting thing that locals do to you to get you to pound shots of that stuff. I have a bottle of it in my refrigerator, or my freezer. It only comes out at kind of the Norwegian National Day in the midsummer. So it comes out once in May, and then it comes out again in June for summer solstice, and I still haven't finished that bottle. It's some tough stuff.
Is it burn like fire going down, right?
Yeah, it'll take the hair off your chest.
No bueno then, no bueno. All right. If you were in a witness relocation program, and that appears a little bit in Black Ice, what would be your new name and where would you go?
Oh, that's a great question. I got some dirty names. I'm not going to do those.
Oh, you can give us 30 names.
Nobody's going to watch this. Don't worry about it.
Oh, yeah. Nobody will watch.
Oh,
no. We only got sponsors and polo shirts, glasses. No, golly. I wish I could draw like all those. I'm trying to think of like a great, like all the times Bart Simpson calls Moe's the bar, and all that, like, so I'd like to be Amanda Hug and Kiss.
Amanda Hug. I love that one.
I need Amanda Hug and Kiss. Can anybody find me Amanda Hug and Kiss? And I would have to, so sticking with the cartoon theme, I would have to be relocated to Rancho Cucamonga because I always saw that in the Bugs Bunny movies.
Bugs Bunny.
So that's Amanda Hug and Kiss of Rancho Cucamonga.
There it is, folks.
Nice.
I tied in Rabbit Hole by bringing Bugs Bunny in.
There you
You
go.
did.
See?
Thank you, brother. Thank
Guy's
you.
a pro. All right, my turn. A hungry animal does make an appearance in Black Ice.
It does.
But what living creature kills the most humans every year?
Divorce attorneys.
I'm pouring a drink here. What are you doing?
I can confirm that. Actually, the answer is mosquitoes.
Really? With fever and just illness and
all the viruses.
Yeah.
Over 1 million human beings every year are killed by mosquito-borne illnesses.
Really? Wow.
Little bastards.
I know. Okay. Unknown to fans, Brad Thor has lived a double life as a deadly assassin. What employed interrogation item is he most known for by his secret colleagues?
A fucking pencil. Best line in John Wick. Best line ever.
Yes. Yeah.
I love that.
With a fucking pencil. I actually have. I'd have to walk off camera for a second, but I've got, so I did a bunch of shoots. I did a photo shoot, like multiple different shots for everydaycarry.com. And I set up stuff, and I had a bunch of things that I had collected over the years, and I almost put in like the pencil John Wick would have used, because there is a company that makes stuff for like CIA operatives and everything, and it's a carbon pencil. Yeah. So it looks like a pencil. It's got an eraser and all that kind of stuff, but you could take it on an airplane and you could do somebody if you had to on the plane with the pencil to make it through security and all that kind of stuff. I can see it. It's sitting right over there.
More you know, folks. All right. Number 3. And this is kind of funny because we brought this up. What old physical injury bothers Harvath the most?
Bothers Harvath the most. Boy, there's nothing that I can think of recurring, unless you guys are thinking of something that you read in Black Ice that I put in there and I'm drawing a blank on right now. These
got a lot of them.
Yeah, he's got a lot. I mean, he's been beaten up pretty good, but these, a lot of times these guys will get back and knee issues.
Yeah.
Less repetitive stuff on the shoulder stuff. You may get, and obviously TBI is a huge thing if you've been around a lot of explosions. So if you're encouraging doors to open via C4, you can get some TBI. So, but I think Harvath is banging around with a lot of the aches and pains that you would see in somebody like a Tom Brady, who's still top of his game, still kicking ass, but probably goes right into the ice the minute he walks off the field, and he's throwing the ball a lot, but he's getting knocked down. So I'm going to guess Harvath, maybe a little bit of shoulder stuff, but probably some back and knee stuff. And that's why he's, taking the supplements and things like that he has.
All right.
I'll go with back as somebody who's had back injuries.
It's not fun. I stopped running right at the end of writing Black Ice because I was getting up early and going right into the office. It was so stupid because when I started up again, boy, could I feel it. I had a tendon issue and I had to just back off a little bit. So your body is absolutely use it or lose it. You got to
cumulative machine.
Okay, my first question is a riddle / joke. Why does the Norwegian Navy have barcodes on the side of their ships?
Oh, I have not heard this one. Why?
So when they return to port, they can Scandinavian.
That's actually good. That's a good one. I've never heard that.
Okay, now might get a little harder. You placed a lot of great music in all of your novels. Aerosmith and maybe my favorite Led Zeppelin song were referenced in Black Ice. Immigrant Song, love that song.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to choose a single song to be Harvath's theme song. What is that song?
Man, that's hard.
I know. I should have given you notice.
You know what? No. It's okay. When I did, was it Near Dark? I did that whole riff on, not enough people unpack what Mick Jagger said about Sympathy for the Devil.
Yeah.
and when it's not only that kind of bossa nova rhythm that Jagger talks about. I was like, holy crap, I never thought about that bossa nova influenced the Stones on that. But you break down the lyrics and all that kind of stuff, because it's upbeat, but it's kind of scary.
Oh yeah.
So I like that. Listen, there's nothing you couldn't do with Back in Black by AC/DC that I wouldn't be like,
I was hearing that in my head.
So was I. I was AC/DC.
Yeah, they started a season of Alias with Jennifer Garner in a private jet coming out in lingerie to Back in Black by AC/DC.
Right.
I mean, the thing is just the perfect, it fits everything. I could have played it at my wedding.
I was saying Iron Man but Iron Man.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
Okay.
That'd be Mitch Rapp's call sign though.
Yes,
so I probably wouldn't use it.
Yeah, that's right.
This one's a level up of the last one.
Okay.
Nashville musicians decide to partner with top authors. By the way, I'm going to freaking pitch this idea. Nashville musicians decide to partner with top authors for an album with the authors providing the lyrics.
Ooh.
What is the hook of your song?
What is the hook of my song?
Yes.
Oh, well, the hook's got to be when you play it backwards, because I love this old joke. You get your job back, you get your girl back, you get your truck back, you get your dog back.
Dog back, yeah.
Excellent.
There it is, folks. Brad Thor, dude, you are an awesome writer, an awesome guest. Black Ice comes out July 20th. Go and buy it.
Thank you,
Cheers,
guys.
brother.
It's always a pleasure. I look forward to this every year. Thank you for having me.
Fantastic book.
Thank you. Thanks for all the love on social media, too. You guys have been fantastic. I really appreciate it.
We'll see you
We're
next year.
fans, man.
We are. See you, bud.
See you guys.
Boys,
Mm.
look at me.
Yes, sir.
Brad Thor again on the crew reviews. This time talking Black Ice.
Yes. There it is.
It's not summer without
Yeah.
Brad Thor novel.
Yeah.
So let's raise a glass. Let's thank Brad Thor for coming on the show. On the crew reviews, we're always talking to the best and greatest storytellers in the world.
There it is, folks. Cheers. Mm. Mm.
I love the look at me. It's very Jersey. Look at me.
Look at me. You look at me, you sons of bitches. Look at me.
Recording in progress. You know what that means.
What does that
It's
mean?
time for the outro for Brad Thor and Black Ice. And here he is, wearing his shirt that gained the attention of Mr. Brad Thor himself.
Dude, he mentioned it. He did.
liked
Look,
it.
you guys got merch.
He might like that shirt, dude. We might want to get him one.
Send
wanna
him
get
one.
him
Maybe
one.
he'll wear it.
Anyways, he's kidless. He looks excited about dinner. He's looking excited about everything else that comes with a home alone. Here we go. In 3, 2, and me.
Brad Thor, his 20th novel, Black
21st.
Ice.
20th Harbath.
Horvath. Yes, 20th Horvath novel.
Take two. Take
Take
two.
2. Chris is a little excited
It's
about
his
later
20th,
on.
20th Horvath novel, though.
20th Harbath, 21st novel, including the Athena project.
He's written a shitload of books.
So it's his 21st novel. Get it right.
I'm not going to say it. I'm not even going to bring it
What?
up.
Now I'm angry.
All right. Hey, boys.
And go.